Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and these two bins that I've got out here on the bench are the bins that I've got my African night crawlers in. These are the African night crawlers that I got from Emily, the crazy worm lady. The other ones that I've got back there on the shelf with the round sticker on it, those are the African night crawlers I got from Gaetano over at Northeast Worms. The African night crawlers that I got from Emily are actually really the worms themselves living in this bin right here, 52-day-old bin. And 52 days ago when I moved the worms into here and I moved them out of the old material that they used to live in, that old material that they used to live in up until 52 days ago is resting within this tray right here. And this is what I refer to as a cocoon nursery. I assume that even though I've moved all the worms out, they probably left a whole bunch of cocoons behind. So my idea here is to try to get these cocoons to hatch. Once I've got baby worms, reintroduce them to the primary colony. So this is really meant to be sort of a temporary thing. 52 days is really kind of pushing it at this point, so I'd really like to see some progress in here. And one viewer really made an interesting comment about how they ran a similar setup like this for about 6 weeks. This is over 7 weeks now here, but pretty much the same story where they felt it might have been a little bit dry, so they kind of went crazy watering the material. And then within days, there was baby worms all over the place. So I think we're going to check this bin from the perspective of, hey, is it possible that it's too dry? And if it is, let's try that overboard watering approach, and then maybe even some sort of a rearrangement of the material to help it preserve its moisture better too, instead of having these gaps on the edges where, you know, moisture can evaporate away, leaving some of the material, you know, dry. So we're going to be feeding in here and possibly watering in here, probably watering in here. So I'm going to put a glove on and we're going to get to work. What's on the menu for today is pretty typical. It's a bunch of coffee, it's some paper towels. I think there's a few pieces of cardboard in there between the paper sheets. There's an apple over here that's started developing a pretty bad little spot of rot, and these are just various veggie shreds that I pulled out of the freezer a little while ago to let them thaw. I didn't want to use anything that was frozen solid since we're going to be feeding the other bin in what I call the lasagna method. But before we get to feeding, why don't we take care of these cocoons just to make sure they've got the moisture they need to be productive. My water bottle's full and I'd like to just dispense it all. I'd like to get it all in here. And there again, that just assumes that we're going to need to. The plastic, when we peeked in here a moment ago, did seem kind of nice and dark to suggest that it's nice and moist. So it might not be as dire as I thought it was. I just had this feeling that it might be drier than it needs to be. But yeah, that one viewer, Connecticut, she did say that for her, the moisture application was what might be considered over the top. So I got no problem putting this whole bottle in here. I think what moisture's in here already combined with what's in here should make it a pretty nice mix. But I guess before we do an application of moisture, maybe I'm going to take this fairly dry stuff. You could tell from its color right away. It's pretty dry stuff, much lighter in color. I thought I'd kind of try to just blend all the stuff in general together, and then we'll do a little dousing with the moisture. It doesn't make sense to spend too much time in here because I don't really suspect many worms in here yet. But if that whole thing about it taking only a few days once the moisture is applied, then you know, we might be in for a nice surprise here next time. Now, my idea for also for helping rearrange the material in such a way that it better preserves its moisture, I wanted to get it all kind of into one side of the bin, and then I think the plastic would do a better job covering the entire amount of material in here. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping for. So my idea was to see if I can stack it up all the way up to the very tippy top and then rearrange the plastic covering. So really quick, squirt down, and then we'll be done in here. Oh, did you hear that? Sometimes when it starts to get to the bottom and it starts sucking air, it makes some weird noises. And I think we're kind of at that point already. So we almost emptied this entire bottle into the container. So I don't know what size this is. Might have some sort of a label on here telling us how many fluid ounces are in here. But I guess you could probably just judge from its appearance that it's a pretty good amount of water. And the material definitely looks a lot more damp now as a result. So now you might have noticed I've also kind of eliminated half of the container at this point by stacking it all over into one side. So all this stuff out here is a little bit kind of stuck to the container. Maybe when it dries it'll flake off and I could just brush it over in with the rest of the stuff. I guess the important thing is that there's no cocoons that got left behind out here, left to dry. The whole idea about the moisture here is to really give the cocoons what they need so that they can get to the next level of, you know, producing their offspring and being done with this whole cocoon nursery concept. So my idea here for better coverage was sort of like this. It does seem like I can be right up against the edge of the container, up against the plastic, all the way around, even down here, touching the bottom, pretty much containing all of the castings completely under plastic to preserve every bit of moisture within the system. So, I don't know. I guess we'll see how that works, but it certainly seems better than before. Extra moisture and extra measures to keep the moisture in. So let's keep our fingers crossed and we'll see what we get next time we check in here. Let's move on over to the other bin and get those little guys fed. So this is a slightly larger container than the other one that we just worked on. Not by much, it's the same height. It's also the same length, but this width here is just a little bit wider. Gives just a little extra breathing room in here. I've been feeding this lasagna pattern as I described it earlier. There's nothing special to it. I'm not giving them any tomato sauce. Nothing like that. It's not true lasagna that they're being fed. It's just the style in which the arrangement of the foods are put into the bin is in a stacked method, sort of the way lasagna is stacked when you build it. And that's what makes this feeding a little bit of a novelty. I'm sort of, I don't know, it's ringing a bell that I think we might have talked about possibly retiring some of these more haggard pieces of paper, possibly replacing them with something fresh, because yeah, some of these pieces of paper are pretty far gone at this point. I think we just sort of took pity on them last time we were in here and kept them around as sort of top covering sheets of paper, but we might be able to actually use these two little ones going forward and get rid of those two big ones. Besides the coffee filters and the napkins, those few extra pieces of newspaper might be a nice little bonus bit of bedding to include in the build of this lasagna feeding. Lasagna reload, I guess is the way I've been referring to it now. The last time we checked in was the 4th reload of the lasagna arrangement. All we really do is we just sort of pick through it a little bit, check out how things are progressing, and then incorporate the newly added food. So usually out here on top in the lasagna bin, had to go quite a way down to get to it. I don't remember putting so much stuff over the top of it, but the first layer, the stuff looks almost brand new, right? It feels pretty fresh, looks pretty crisp. Kind of surprised that it's in such terrific shape, but yeah, it's only a week old. This top layer was actually added brand new during our last check-in 7 days ago, and it's for that reason it looks pretty intact still. I think when we get to some of the lower layers, you'll see what I mean, since I'm sort of speaking in relative terms here. The lasagna arrangements have been going on, you know, this is, I believe, the system's 6th feeding, or maybe the 7th feeding, of which this will be the 4th lasagna style arrangement. So At this point, the majority of the feedings in this bin are going to be lasagna style, outnumbering the whatever other kind of feedings it got last time. There's a worm hanging out here. Let's evict them just so we can see how things are going as we make our way down into the first layer here. I don't know what this stuff is. It's not really ringing a bell. I don't recall what I fed. Might be apple peels or maybe carrot. It's tough to tell just from the appearance of it. Whatever it was, it's kind of mush anymore. Just the color kind of makes me wonder if it might be carrot or pumpkin. Those are usually, at least nowadays, the pumpkin is kind of a standard thing that fits onto most menus if possible. Although I'm finally running out of this stuff. Here's a little bit of leftover food. Might be pumpkin. It's hard to tell though. So I'm really just sort of, I guess I just put a big tear into that piece of cardboard there. So now, I guess under that one solid piece of cardboard, if I remember correctly, there's two separate smaller pieces side by side here. So right down the middle, we would find one of the pieces. That's some coffee we can see on the bottom of it. Sometimes we try to peel apart these corrugated layers of cardboard to get a peek at what's happening inside, because usually there's worms enjoying that nice little private layer between the corrugated. I think the real reason they like it is not because of privacy. I think it's because of all that starch-based glue that holds the cardboard layers together. I think that's really what they are there for. That's what they like about that. So I think that's the main reason when you peel apart layers of corrugated cardboard in your worm bin, you usually find worms in there exploiting the stuff they like. And that one, it didn't seem too impressive. I didn't see that many. So we're down to another layer here, but I think I just actually scooped up one of the chunks of the next layer. This one actually looks like it has multiple various pieces, switching kind of from cardboard sheets to I'm trying to remember what this was. I think it might be no, it's not a coffee filter. Some sort of piece of paper, I guess, had sort of stood in as another layer. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was newspaper? It's hard to say. There are some various colors and whatnot on this stuff, and I believe this is more of the same. No, maybe the colors are the food leftovers. It's so weird how this stuff just gets demolished by the worms and by everything else in the bin. It's like something that you could totally recognize a few days ago becomes indiscernible from the stuff around it. It all just turns to mush. And I can't remember. I think we do have one more bottom layer here to check out. And this one's pretty far gone, you gotta admit. Really tattered, but still kind of holding together. Oh, I don't know, did I just break that piece off? I might have. We're definitely getting there. This is almost the bottom, I think, at this point. And here, I thought there might have been another piece right next to it, and maybe there was, and it's just been shredded at this point. But I think we've pretty much encountered all of the layers that made up our little lasagna feeding arrangement here. So I'm going to start reconstructing it. That's the reason I had spent the time this morning to actually pick these foods out and let them thaw, because I have no way to separate all the worms from all these pieces of material that we're going to be reincorporating back into the lasagna arrangement. So I'd rather just know that I'm putting foods and materials into here that are not frozen, so that I'm not like piling stuff on top of worms, stuff that they probably wouldn't appreciate, all kinds of frozen foods and whatnot. So I guess this bottom layer is probably going to be unrecognizable to us next time we come in here. There's a couple pieces of napkin will probably be gone in no time. I'm thinking maybe I gotta sort of break this apple up a bit, because it's still whole, but luckily it's thawed and we can do so with ease with one hand. I think all the other stuff is pretty small chunk fragments of all kinds of vegetables from the bottom of the bag, so it's pretty small already. This is the only large object that I bought down here to get rid of. But yeah, I think things have thawed out here pretty good. And we're going to start piling in the coffee. the coffee, when I add it nowadays, I try to blend it in with the surrounding materials a little bit. Maybe even incorporate some older existing materials from the bin to give the coffee all kinds of stuff to be attached to and smeared to and combined with. I just don't want it all combined with itself. That's the key, is I don't want a big lump of coffee that the worms can't make anything out of. So now here's some more of this bedding looking stuff, sort of paperish, whatever. And then these cardboard sheets kind of came in pairs. So I think we can sort of pair them up again in a way. This was one piece, this was a second piece, and then we could match these two together. So why don't we bring in the next layer, and you know what, we could use this paper towel or napkin or whatever it is. That'll make for a pretty cool lasagna layer. And let's spread what's left of this coffee out for them into this layer's base. Now we can start changing up the food types here. We'll drop in some of these yummy veggie scraps. I think we've got enough veggie scrap here to do yet another layer. And apple. So yeah, we've got definitely enough for another layer here, as well as more coffee to feed. So I think since we've already laid down some yummy foods here on top of the coffee, maybe we can even throw some additional coffee on too. Can you tell I've got a couple days worth of coffee that I need to get rid of? Alright, very nice. Looking good, looking good. So I've got a couple really tattered looking ones. This one looks like it almost consists of nothing anymore. Really beaten up. It's kind of a toss-up. I don't know which of these is more tattered. Perhaps we'll just take this one since it's in multiple pieces and get this back into service here. It's got some good weight to it, so I think it's got a good amount of like leftover, food scraps attached to it here. Man, this is starting to look like a real yummy feast. Delicious worm bin feast. Now, you know what I'll do? I'm going to hang on to one of these coffee filters, a nice fresh one. So I'll take this old one that was resting out on the top surface of our bin and now put it into a much more noble line of work here, serving the worms more directly. And I'm starting to get confused now. Did I just fail to put stuff in between two lasagna layers? I'm such a scatterbrain. Whatever. I think we've got a little bit more stuff that we could pile in here. We could reintroduce another layer or two. Maybe even put them down as double layers if we have to at this point. Alright, yeah. We're almost there. We just need to do away with a couple more little bits of apple and veggie scrap. What I'll do is I'll set this one off to the side. We'll use it to label the top surface to show us where we last fed. And I think all the rest of this stuff, we'll just scrape it out and turn it into the next and last layer. Maybe this last layer is going to be sort of a double layer, because we'll put this down also as lasagna layer material right across the top here. But then I'm kind of treating this cardboard, this top covering cardboard that's still in really great shape, as sort of more of a lid. Not so much lasagna layers that are there to be eaten, more as just a covering for our little arrangement here. So that's fun. Perhaps a little bit more involved. I'm just thinking, you know, we also talked about utilizing some of those pieces of paper over there and replacing them with new. But you know what? Maybe we'll save that for another day, because I think we're a-okay here as far as the lasagna is concerned. We don't need any more layers. So we'll just do a quick little fluff of some of the material around the edges here. Just till it a bit. Introduce a few little air pockets down low. Maybe even sort of help push the lasagna inboard a little bit. Ooh, got a little bunch of worms hanging out over here. Sorry guys, disrupting their little meeting. Alright, very nice. So you could see when we do one of these bins, we're really not bashful about using a lot of bedding material. So there's bedding material everywhere, and we add it pretty much every time. More paper, more cardboard. Like I said last time, we even added this brand new fresh layer of cardboard on top, so it's It's a really nice bin in the making at 52 days. Definitely making good progress, I've got to say. So, whatever. Now I'm just sort of stacking stuff up on top of each other. Maybe I will come in here next time, sort of with the advanced knowledge that there is a bunch of really tattered materials that make up the top layering, top coverings. And we'll just come in here with the advanced knowledge that we're going to want to probably put this stuff to better use somewhere down low within the bin so that it can get consumed by the worms. Use it as bedding rather than top covering anymore because it is pretty beaten up, as is this stuff over here. Trying so hard to very carefully keep it in one piece. Once it falls into multiple pieces, it becomes less interesting to try to keep it together. Oh boy, did it just break? Just as I was saying it, right? That's okay. We'll make a better use out of all this paper here on the top surface. Next time we come in here, we'll make sure that that goes in as part of the feeding, as part of the bedding that goes with the feeding. Maybe even dedicate another layer or two to this additional paper. Should be fun. Ooh, dropping castings all over the table. I'm gonna have to clean up here after I'm done, but I'm not gonna keep you around for that. That's boring. Before I go there really quick, let me say thank you. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please remember to leave me a thumbs up. That's always really appreciated. If you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel too. That's really appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching.